Hi. It's so nice to see everyone again virtually. A quick shout out from my ambassador, please, to make sure that my audio is working. Of course, the tech gremlins love to join in the fun when there's a live stream. They go, oh, there's a live stream happening. Let's go mess it up. So I just want to make sure that I can be heard. Gary Milo, Ambassador of Music and Chat, where are you? Or someone let me know in the live stream that all is a-okay. I want to wish everyone again a happy new year. Yes, I hope it's been a good one so far. And I'm tuning in from Singapore, of course, or broadcasting from Singapore, I should say. I guess I'm tuning in too. Please say hi in the live chat. Join Gary, our ambassador, in the live chat. Say hi to everybody and let us know where you're tuning in from. And don't be backward and coming forward. And remember to put any questions you may have in the live chat so I can attend to them as the stream moves along. Music and Chat, M&C for short, will be 2 years old in May. And I'm so grateful to you all for subscribing to my channel. I shall continue to diligently find intriguing guests for you. Please help me pass the word around. I would dearly like to see 600 subscribers very soon. Hopefully even more by the 2nd anniversary. And I believe I can achieve it with your help. So thank you in advance. Want to say hi to all of you out there again. Please say hi in the live chat. I just realized my microphone level is really high, so I'm going to turn it down a bit. You know, this is a job for multiple people, but in this day and age, it's a DIY all yourself. So it's been great for me, though. You know, you have to be on your feet, making sure that everything is working. So never a dull moment, as they might say. It's now 9:34 a.m. in Singapore, and let's get on with the stream. I want to perform the first movement and a half from my large format piece that I've been referring to as the concerto. I have plans to record it this year. Yes, the plan's in action. I've finally finished the piece, writing the final movement. There's always scope for modifications, right? As the creative community out there is aware of. It's really difficult to finish an album because there's always more to add to it, but there comes a time when it must be done so you can move on to other fun stuff as well. And yes, I do have I'm working on other music already, so I'm looking forward to completing those as well. Okay, so let me play you Sarah Sersha and Izeibila 1. That's the movement and a half from this concerto. Let me turn on the theremin cam because it's a theremin piece. And let me just calibrate quickly. That's Sarah Sersha and Izeibila, excuse me, from my large format piece that I've been calling a concerto. So you guys out there, please say hello in a live chat so that we can have a hearty party, I call it. The more the merrier. My version, hearty party. So we met a trio of touring professionals just recently, talking about how life is on the road, how life has been due to COVID, and how the live music scene is trying to reopen. Today is our sequel to my expose on this group of people, and we have our friend Don Weeks, who's a lighting designer and production tour manager. Let's bring Don in. Let me bring up my Skype cam first, and I also noticed my microphone is still pretty loud. Anyway, I brought it down. I hope that's better. So I'm gonna get Don in now. Let's Skype him. Hi, Don.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Good, good.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us this evening, your time, and to share a few stories from your 35 plus years working in the industry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Let's not waste a precious minute and jump right to the period in your illustrious career. And I'm referring to the years 2011 to 2016 when you're lighting designer and director for Yes, the band.
Yes. I would. Well, basically 2011 to 2019. But yeah, it was quite a period there in between 11 and 16. They were in the middle of doing a lot of the full albums, playing entire albums in concert, which they hadn't done really in many decades, if they'd done it at all. Plus, it was the fact that Chris Squire was still alive, founding member, bass player, who we unfortunately lost in 2015. But it was exciting at that time. You know, they were going through some singer changes. They got John Davidson in now, who's been with them for 10 years now.
Wow.
So it was interesting seeing him come in and doing his first shows. You know, because he was basically just a fan who was playing in another band. He had played some Yes songs in like a tribute band, besides his band Mystery that he was in. So it was, you know, it's kind of exciting. So, you know, especially working with a legendary band such as Yes.
Tell us how you first got into lighting designing.
Oh, we're going back many decades, aren't we? Well, I started out kind of just hanging around. This is around high school. I'm going to date myself here. This was the very early 80s. Okay. A friend of mine in high school, him and his brother, who was a couple years older than him, had a band. And so we're about a year, maybe less than a year out of high school. And they were playing, and they were, you know, they did covers. You know, they did the weekend circuit. They played the covers. And they did 3 sets a night, things like that. I used to go out and hang out and watch them play. And one night, their lighting director never showed up. So the drummer, who was another friend of mine, said, "Well, you played drums as a kid. You have some rhythm. Want to run lights?" I was like, "I have no idea how to run lights." They're like, "That's fine. Just keep us lit in the front, and just flash the buttons on the time, in time to the music." And I was like, "Okay." So I guess I did a pretty good job because they ended up hiring me, and I did that on weekends, kind of as a second job. But I was actually going to college for telecommunications. I was going to go into radio and television, and actually spent a couple of years working in professional radio at a small radio station. But I was doing the lighting on the side, doing the local bands and the club bands and things like that. I had friends that were in. Well, back in those days, I had the long hair and I was really into heavy metal, and I kind of fell into it. You know what I mean? It was one of those things. It's just sort of, it was kind of a hobby, but I was making a little bit of money on the side, but I had my other job. But then as I was going along, I just was like, radio's not for me. I wasn't bad at it. It wasn't really where I wanted to go, and the money wasn't very good at the time. And I just said, well, okay, I'm going to try this, the other side of it. And I kind of got lucky. I knew a couple people. I knew a gentleman named Bill Peters, who runs a label called Auburn Records out of Cleveland, Ohio. And it's an independent heavy metal label, but he had several bands. Well, one of his bands got signed to IRS Records, a band called Shock Paris. And they were going on tour. They were actually going out and touring with Sabotage. You know who that is. That's guys that are now in Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And I'd actually known the Sabotage guys from my radio days, when I used to have a side show on a heavy metal station that was a non-commercial. I was doing it for free.
You were covering everything, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I was dabbling in a lot of different kinds of style, different types of music, and just different parts of the business. And but anyway, I went on tour with Bill's band Shock Paris, and went on tour, and it just kind of went from there. And I just kept finding bands, and I was working shows at home too. Bands would come through, and a friend of mine, we had a little lighting system, and we had it in one of the clubs in town, and they did a lot of national acts that would come through. A lot of those bands didn't have lighting directors at the time because they were doing the club circuit, So I would do lights for them, and it just sort of, and I got to know people, and because this industry, as anybody will tell you, it's who you know, and you're only as good as your last gig, and it's everybody, everybody's a friend or everybody's an enemy, depending on how you handle it. And it's just kind of gone from there. I mean, there's people that I came up with in the club days in the 80s that I still work with, that I still see, that I'm still friends with. Yeah.
Wow. There you go, guys. That's a good lesson to learn. I've been teaching some students, electronic music, but also about running your own enterprise, because that's what creative people are. We run our own businesses, right? We are we're self-sufficient business, or we should be. And you're as good as your last gig. Be aware of your reputation. You must always be as hardworking as you can, be on time, all those kinds of things. Be pleasant to people.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You really have to. And friendships, that's the nice thing about this business, is that a lot of friendships come out of this business. It's not just a job. I have a lot of my really good friends or people that I've met over the years that, I tour with or have toured with. Some of these people I've got 30 plus year relationships with some of these people.
Wow. So a couple of decades later or so, how did you land this gig with Yes then?
Again, it comes back to having a friend in the business. The gentleman who at the time was Steve Howe's guitar tech, the gentleman named Joe Camo, who some of your viewers may know if they're into heavy metal. Joe was in the band Overkill from New York or New Jersey. He was the guitar player in the 90s. But he was also in a band called Liege Lord, which they were on Metal Blade Records, small label, but they put out a fantastic record back in 1988. So I went on the road with them. And Joe's from my area. I've known Joe. We kind of came up in the clubs. So Joe was working, and he still does work for Yes. He's now their tour manager. He's now their road manager. But he was Steve Howe's guitar tech at the time, and they had just lost their lighting director at the time. He had gone to do another tour and wasn't coming back, for whatever reason. So he called me and said, "Hey, are you available? We're going on tour." And this was in the spring of 2011. There was some stuff happened. I was supposed to do this tour. They were going out on a tour with Styx, and I ended up not doing it, but I joined them in the fall of that year to do a European tour, and been there ever since. So it's just one of those things. I knew Joe, and Joe knew me, and recommended me for the position. So it's just kind of one of those things that worked out.
So we wanted to isolate a few years that were somewhat milestones in your career in the last 2 decades. Wow. So we
Okay.
picked 2014. So I have a picture of the year's 2014 tour. Here's a poster to begin with, and a picture of them on stage that you provided. Of course, the band members are relatively small compared to the size of the picture, but you can kind of make them out. Let me try and scale it up a bit if I can.
Yeah, I don't see it yet on my side, but
It'll take some time.
oh, okay. Yeah, that was that would be that's from the 2000. Yeah, it's 2013, 14, right in there. That's because that's Chris Squire still on stage. I think that picture is. I'm trying to remember.
Would this have been
I think that picture was taken.
Go on.
What's that?
I was going to say, I wonder if that was a Fragile, Close to the Edge, and Heaven and Earth tour. Was that it?
Yes, I believe it was. I believe it was. Yes. I'm just trying to think where it was taken. That might be. That's either Japan. It's either Japan or that was somewhere on the East Coast in the U.S.
Wow.
Looking, because we didn't. The thing about Yes these days is they don't carry full production, except for Japan. It's the same lighting system there. Same thing in Australia. Same thing in usually in Europe, or at least the UK. They don't necessarily. We usually travel with some additional lighting, which is part of what we call a floor package.
Okay.
And we carry the video. There's usually a video wall or video screen, and that's all we carry. But we don't. Most of the overhead lighting we don't carry. We haven't carried it for quite a few years now. There was some dates in 2018 in the U.S. that we carried, not the whole tour, but there was some select dates where we had the same production for several shows. But so that's why I'm trying to figure out where the picture was. I can usually tell by kind of the lighting system that was in house. So.
Got it. So.
But yeah, so that's. Go ahead.
No, sorry. You first. Of course, you first.
No, I was just gonna say because that's why I was looking at the design and trying to figure out because that was one of the last tours. Just by looking at that picture, when I first joined, yes, the gentleman who is their video person, Andy Clark, who's from England. Andy's been with them for a while, and he was basically doing everything with a couple of small projectors and a projection screen.
Oh, okay.
Just because it was a budgetary thing, and money was tight back in those days.
I understand.
So this tour was one of the first ones where we were getting away from the video projector and actually going to like an LED video wall and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So
this was an interesting. This was an interesting tour too because those video panels are actually they're like a soft material. They actually roll up.
Oh, yeah.
The product called, if I remember, it's a product called Pixelplex.
I remember seeing something like that where you could roll up so you'd hang it like a banner because it's so soft. But the ones that I saw were somewhat translucent. This was opaque though, right? These were opaque.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the only thing with these, they were very the connections were very fragile in them. Oh. No pun intended. But they were fragile. And Andy we had a lot of issues with them. But it was nice because when he was using the video projection screen, it was a struggle that I didn't wash out the video with the lighting. Yeah. So it was always a challenge every day because, like I said, we didn't always carry the lighting system for overhead. So that was always a big thing on the early tours, was trying to make the video, still present itself but not take away from the lighting either.
I understand. So these.
And then later on, when we.
Oh, go on. Yes.
Sorry.
You first.
Yeah, I was gonna say later on once we went to LED video walls and things, then that problem went away. Obviously.
So. Yeah, okay, I'll address the LED video walls in a second. So these video banners, I'm going to call them, I guess relatively easy to cart around. You had them, it's part of the band's equipment, right?
Yes, it was everything. It was all, that tour was it's usually one semi-truck. It's not a huge thing, but it's everything. It's the lighting, the video, They carry a monitor system, front of house audio console, no PA. The PA is usually local.
Wow.
But it all fits in a truck, but it's a lot of stuff in one truck. I mean, it's top to bottom and front to back. Very, very full truck.
How do you
But
travel?
we've had other tours where it's been.
How do you travel with all of that overseas, though?
Well, that's what we do then is it's different vendors in every country. You know, it's a different sound company or different lighting company. But same thing in like in Europe. It's a semi truck. Crew is on a bus. You know, a night, they call it a nightliner. Japan is a little different because they don't have tour buses over there, and we travel around either by vans or trains.
Jeez.
And then the truck is all done. Hold on,
Hello.
Got a friend. I got a friend who wants to get on camera. So
Hello.
this is Louis.
Louis.
All right, Louis, go play. The funny thing is, he's not even my cat. He's my sister's cat. He's staying with because her other cat, they don't get along right now.
Oh dear.
So he likes me, so he moved in here a couple months ago. So, but he's a handful.
I find that cats seem to know when there's a camera on, because I've had several guests who, with a similar situation where, oh, my cat wants to be on camera too.
Well, he heard me talking. He was sleeping, and he just got up, and I heard him kind of going about at the table here. Next thing I know, there's claws on my leg, and I'm like, oh, somebody wants to come up and say hi. So.
Let's move on.
He got his 15 minutes of fame, I guess, right?
Not quite sure about 15 minutes. You shortchanged him. I think maybe he got about 2 minutes, the most.
He'll be back. Trust me.
Although 2 minutes in cat years is quite a long time, isn't it?
I would think so. Yeah.
I got a picture you sent me of the 2015 tour. This could have been the North American tour. And already we see some changes in the video display. Am I right?
Yeah.
You see in a second.
Just waiting to.
Yeah.
I'll see in a second. Yeah. We try to change it up every year. You know, every tour we would try to do something different because the thing about any fan who goes to see a band a lot, especially, you know, the Yeses of the world, the Rushes of the world, you know, those kind of bands. The fans there's fans that go and see them, you know, a dozen times on the same tour, and they go every year. So they want to see something different. They want, yes, it's about the musicians, it's about the music, but visually, especially if you're doing a lot of really cool visuals, they want to see something different. And they talk about it. I mean, I'm one of those people. I go on, and I shouldn't do this, but I go on the fan forums and I look to see what they're saying, and they're actually really nice when they really do see something they like. They're very vocal about it, and they'll even come up to you during the show and say something about it. You know, how much they really enjoy it, how much they liked it. But yeah, this was all one big video wall on this particular tour, and this would be the 2015 tour. This is the tour that we did in North America with Toto. Toto was was a co-headliner, but Toto went on first every night.
Wow.
So, so this particular tour, we had the video wall. You see the lights on the towers back there.
Yeah.
And now those were Ariton Magic blades, and I used those on several tours, and I reconfigured them from tour to tour. So it was the same type of light, but it was set up differently. So to the concert goer, it looked like a completely new show every time.
Wow.
And the reason I used them is I really liked. I was able to do a lot with them. They didn't take up a lot of space in the truck, and they were also very energy friendly. They didn't use a lot of power and the weight, things like that. But this was an interesting tour because you had two bands doing full sets. So Toto also had their own floor lighting package, we had to hide the video wall and hide our lighting with a drape, and then they would put their stuff in front of it, and then we did a complete reveal. We stripped the stage away, pulled our back line up, and then so you see that.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was an interesting one, because obviously Toto's has they have a big, there's six people in that band, So there was a lot of risers to move around, a lot of lights to move around, and some of the venues. I mean, we were doing some smaller theaters in the U.S.
Yeah.
And the stages they get a little small when you start putting a lot of equipment on them.
I was gonna say, just you describing to me that both bands have their own system, made me very, very nervous. Because when you set things up, in pre-production, you like to make sure everything works and you leave it, but having to then move it back, and hopefully all
Right.
connections are still a-okay. That makes me very, very nervous. Have you ever encountered a situation where things didn't go quite as planned? Let's say in this tour.
No, on the Toto tour it went well. Out on the shows themselves, the changeovers, everything went very smooth.
Yeah.
They had some issues with lighting directors. They ended up firing the lighting person they had during the tour, and they had to have someone come in and fill in.
What happened?
That's the whole other. Well, their longtime lighting director had taken a break. Him and his wife had a child, so he was home. He was playing stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
So he had gotten off the road for a while. So they had somebody else come in to fill in, and I guess they just weren't happy with the way his show for whatever reason. He was let go midway through the tour, and then they had to bring somebody else in. But the gentleman who was their lighting director, who was stay-at-home dad, ended up coming back and finishing the West Coast date of the tour. Yeah. So that was a bit awkward, because there was that tension within.
Yeah. Well, wasn't the replacement just running the cues though, or did he design it as well?
No, what happened is they had a design that was done. They had come off a European tour, a headlining tour, which the regular lighting director had designed, or well, he had run the show. It was actually designed by his name slips me. I should know this guy's a legend. Pink Floyd's old lighting director that did the Pulse tour.
Okay.
And I've spoke to him on the phone. I'm a big Floyd fan. For some reason I can't remember his name. But he had designed the show for Europe.
Okay.
So then they moved it over here, but they weren't carrying everything. They were only carrying the floor part of it. So the band wanted to make some changes. So the new lighting director was building some new cues, and they just weren't happy for whatever reason. Which was sad. I felt bad for him. You never like to see anybody lose their job, especially in the middle of a tour.
Yeah.
But they got through it okay, and the tour went well. I mean, the bands got along great. And of course, we're talking about two legendary bands on the same stage. Just alone with Steve Lukather and Steve Howe, you have two of the greatest guitar players from the '70s, or maybe of all time, on stage at the same time. So that made things much easier for everybody, because you've got great musicians and they're total pros.
So speaking of getting on with the artists, did you have to work with the members of Yes to realize their vision when you first got the job and you had to design, for them? Did they give that 10 cents worth, or did you sit down at a formal meeting, or they just left it to you?
No, they just left it to me. Like I said, they had just come off a tour with, they'd done a co-headlining tour in the U.S. doing an amphitheater tour with Styx. So they were working off of a lighting system that Styx had designed.
Okay.
And the gentleman who was running the show, who actually I knew, who was just doing that tour, he just went in and did the show. So when I got on board, the one thing that I was told immediately was that they never wanted it to go completely black. They never wanted it to go dark on stage.
Did they say
when,
why?
Like, a song would end, a song would end, you do a quick fade out, but it was never longer than a couple of seconds. You come right back, because they've got to be able to see, especially they're older gentlemen now, but it's like most bands, they want to be able to see, what's going on, because whether they're doing a guitar change or whatever, they need to see their instrument. So you always come back with some sort of a nice dark blue stage look, So that was the one thing I was told immediately, that was a really important. And then as the first tour went along, as fans of Yes know, Steve Howe comes across as a bit cranky, which is not always the case. Steve is a perfectionist, and I understand that, and I was able to kind of fall into, okay, I'm going to really listen to what he's got, because he's not throwing a lot at me. He's not asking for a lot, but there were certain things. That was one of them, was the stage thing, and he's also very big on follow spot. The follow spot has to be on him, especially when he's solo and he's playing something very intricate. He wants to be lit, and not only for the fans, but also so he can see the play. And the first year it was a little touch and go here and there because of you get. I'm not running the follow spot. There's another person running who's not with the tour, so and I'm telling him what to do, and sometimes they're not very good, or they're lazy, or they're not really listening. So you have that tendency of, well, it wasn't my fault, but the artist may not realize that. But Steve, after a while, especially now after all these years, he doesn't question it. If there's an issue with the spotlight, he knows it's not me, because when the show is on and those spots are hitting, I'm calls. I'm right on it. I don't miss. That's one thing I do. I hate calling follow spots. I hate it, but it's part of the job sometimes. And I got to a situation with Yes where I got to where I know those songs really well, and it's very intricate. People say, well, you must have most lighting directors have a cue list of their spot calls. I don't. Not with Yes. I don't know why. I just never have done it with them. I have with other bands, but I don't with them. Just because there's so much going on that I'm just, it was just easier just to do it in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I talk to other lighting directors, friends of mine, they're like, how do you do that without writing it down? Write it down. I'm like, I don't know. I just do it. So, but I don't do a lot of color changes with them either. It's mostly I work in a color correction. I don't do a lot of blues. I don't switch out a lot of color with them. I used to do it that way. I just don't do it. I just don't work for me for the way I'm doing lighting.
Gotcha. So speaking of follow spots, I remember talking to a friend once who used to work in theater, and he said, "Do you know how much training one has to get before one can take on that role?" And at that time, I didn't know if he was being funny or whether he was being serious. But most people who are not in the industry don't realize that it's quite a responsibility.
Yes, it is. But that's the problem, though, is that some of these cities now, some of these spot operators that we get aren't very, very good. I mean, if you get into the venues where you've got the union crews, yeah, they're a lot of them are trained, or they're professional at it. But some places you go into and it's some kid that they've hired, for the day, that they needed another body. He happens to know a little bit about it. That's when you run into the problem.
I hear you. So, with regards to crew, how large is your crew then? Or maybe I should say, what's the minimum personnel in the crew must you have, and what kind of roles do they play?
Most of the Yes crew, most of the tours I've done with them, it's usually 4 backline. So there's a guitar tech, Steve, Jeff, keyboard player, has a keyboard tech. There's a drum tech, and a bass tech.
Got it.
So there's those 4 guys. There's a monitor engineer. There's a front of house sound engineer. There's a lighting director. There's a tour manager, and there's also a production manager or production assistant who helps run the backstage.
So are they all involved in setting up the lot then on stage, or do you have extra?
They're involved in setting. No, they're involved in setting up their own worlds, the guitar world or drum world.
Yeah.
And then we have, there's stage hands that help out.
Okay.
So
you don't usually bring your stage hands along, right? The venue provides it.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's provided by the promoter, but by the venue, yeah.
Because it can get quite costly, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, in Europe, Europe's a little different. In some, when I talk about going back to the spotlight, guys, sometimes in the UK, you'll have, or sometimes even in Europe, you'll have the bus drivers, truck drivers. They'll get paid extra to run follow spots for the show, and which is really strange because you don't see that in North America, because a lot of that is because in North America the drivers have longer drives. Some nights you're doing 400 and 500 miles or more between cities, so the drivers have to sleep during the day. Where in Europe, I mean, especially the UK, it's such a small country. You're only, you know, you're going through. Oh, we're leaving at, you know, we're leaving at 1 a.m. Well, we're going to be at the next city by 2:30. You know, and our load-ins might be not till 8, 9 in the morning. It's short. The drive's so short. You know, so a lot of times they'll do that, but it's all. Come with the sound and lighting company.
Just checking my audio again. My interface just got disconnected, but I think I see. Can you guys still hear me? Testing. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happening. Without the, you wish you didn't have to, but you do.
Right.
Yeah, I heard it crackling before. I'm not. Mac microphone. Gary. Yeah. Can hold on. All right. Someone tell me in the live stream if you can hear me. Hopefully you can hear Don when he starts talking. Don, do you mind just jabbering a little bit? I'm just checking your audio.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah, I can see. Yeah. I can see your levels, and I'm using the computer microphone, so I think we're good. Yes. Okay. So we're talking about crew. I want to move from crew to some of your equipment. So those of us who are in lighting will probably be familiar with the Grand MA lighting console. I got a couple of pictures that Don has sent us. One is of himself working, I guess, in his. Is this your home? You'll see in a second, I hope. But it looks like you have the lighting plot on the extreme right of the picture, the actual Grand MA console in front of you, and then it looks like a 3D visualizer of sorts on your. It looks like a MacBook Pro to your extreme left.
You nailed it. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. What happened is I did this a couple of times for the U.S. tours to get a kind of jump on the thing. Yeah. Being that, like I said, we're not carrying full production, but I do have my floor package, and I've had it designed ahead of time. Yeah. I would have them send the lighting vendor would send me a console. They would ship one to my house.
Right.
I would take it out of the case. I actually put it on the dining room table.
Oh, right.
And so what I'm doing is I'm actually programming. I would sit with an iPod and sit there and program, and I'm using the laptop because the Grand MA has the 3D visualizer software, and I could actually kind of see so I would draw a plot out on the program, and basically what I do is I would send out, we didn't carry the full production, I would send out a lighting plot. Okay, here's what I would like you to provide to me locally. I didn't always get it, but this is the basic one that I started with. It was usually 3 trusses, had a certain amount of fixtures, and that's what the show was programmed off of. And I would clone each city if the lighting rig was different, and I would clone to that show. But all the stuff we carried with us was always the same. But yeah, this was me working in my house, and my neighbors thought I was crazy.
What do you mean?
Because the truck would pull up, and they. Oh. Well, because the truck would pull up, and I'd get this road case, and the guy would be like helping me get it in, like in the front door of my house, And if you look, you'll see in that picture. If you kind of look past the console, you can see I have one of the lighting fixtures sitting on a road case, so that I can actually see, because I was using it to build all my my palette. Because that particular fixture, the Magic Blade, has each individual light cell. You can separate them with different colors and different patterns and do different things with them. It's not just one set of lights on at the same time.
Wow.
few individuals.
So I
Yeah.
got a
So
picture. Sorry, go on, Don, please.
no, I was just saying. So yeah, so so I would have the light going off. So I'd be programming all day, and I'd go into the evening, and one of my neighbors could see, like through the window, through the blind, he could see the light doing stuff.
Oh.
I saw him like a couple days later. He goes, "What are you doing? Having a party in your house?" I go, "No, I'm working." He goes, "Oh, I saw the truck. I was wondering what all that equipment was going into your house." I'm like, "Yeah."
You could have a
So
party in your spare time with all that equipment in your house.
yeah, probably.
So I have a picture that you sent as well of looks like your setup for Yes on a similar system. I don't know if they're from the same year, the same upgrade, or same version, if you know what I'm saying, software or hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm displaying that picture you have with the Yes.
Yeah,
Logo.
that's the same. That's the same programming session. I took a picture of that.
Okay.
I don't know. I did it just because I was done the background, and I found that picture. So you might like to see it because you mentioned something about the MA. So I was looking for pictures of consoles I had with the Grand MA. So. But that one I put the Yes logo on it. I do that on all the tours, and a lot of the tours, the guys that's the neat thing with the Grand MA. You can when you put it into the screensaver mode, you can actually have any kind of artwork you want. So everybody always does their band logo or the band tour poster or whatever on their console.
Nice. So in the 10 years since you joined Yes as lighting designer director, has the equipment changed much that you use?
Some of the lighting has, obviously, but as far as I've been using the same lighting console the whole time.
Wow.
No, I stand corrected. I used a Grand MA1 on the very first tour. The 2 it's been out a little while, but I knew the 1, and I didn't know the 2 yet that well, and I'd only been on it a few times. So after the first European tour with the MA1, I got an MA2, and then the show over, I was able to import it over and make some changes. Because you could actually do that, upgrade your show to the 2. So of course now there's the 3 out. There's the Grand MA3, which I've played around with a little bit, but I haven't moved any of my shows over to it, just because MA is not going to like me saying this, but there's still too many issues with the MA3 software, and I haven't been on it enough. But some of the really good programmers I know have told me, they're like, yeah, there's things they don't like about it. There's just some issues with it yet. So there's not a lot of tours running the MA3s as far as I know with the MA3 software. There's still on the MA3 hardware you can use the MA2 software. So it looks just like an MA2, except if you look at the lighting console, it's definitely a different layouts and things like that on the desk. But they're great consoles. I mean, MA is really, they are the industry standard as far as, especially on the rock and roll side of it. Pretty much every tour you see out there has got a Grand MA. There are some other consoles. There's still some hogs out there. You'll see Evo still in Europe. There's Campsys, but for the most part, most of your tours are Grand MA.
How many venues have you worked in the last, let's say, decade who have Grand MAs? Is this like the industry standard console?
It's the industry. Yeah, for touring it seems to be. Yeah, I think it's become that in the last 15 years. For the longest time, it was the whole hog 2. In the 90s, that's what I was using on tour. I would take out the whole hog 2. But when high-end went to the third version, there was a lot of they rushed it out too quickly, and there was a lot of problems in the desk. I did a small tour that I had what they called an IPC version of their desk, and it would crash during the show. And I would literally had 2 of them out. They were small desks. I had 2 of them, and I had them running simultaneously, that because if the one crashed, I can jump to the other show. You know, I can jump to the desk, keep the show going. And it happened. I did probably 6 weeks on that tour, and it happened probably at least a half a dozen times. And I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to deal with this. So my next tour, the other, I was a co-headlining tour, and I just said, the other LD was like, I'm using an MA. Are you good to go with that? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I ended up using a Grand MA one after that, and I haven't gone back since. And I've been on a Hog a couple of times since, but that's just for like one-offs. But most of the venues, like when we're touring, we don't use the house stuff. We carry our own lighting consoles, same with the audio consoles, just for that consistency and that flow, because you do have your show built on that, and it makes it easier. And that's the thing, a lot of tours now, I don't think most fans realize that a lot of your tours now aren't carrying full production. They're carrying, they're at least not carrying their sound system. A lot of, because the audio, there's so many regional companies now, or even just venues, are putting in good audio systems. And some of them are putting in, some of their in-house lighting systems are really nice. That's the nice thing about automated lighting, especially in the last decade. The price has come down. You still got companies that are making the really expensive lights, but some of the other, what I used to call the cheaper companies, the American DJ, Elation, those kind of companies, they've taken the quality of their lighting and it's better now. It's not the top of the line, but it's good enough that you're seeing it now. I'm seeing Elation stuff out on tour, you know, which you didn't see that 10 years ago. Most people wouldn't tour with it because they're like, oh, that's just for a club. But you know, so that you're seeing that now more and more, where the house systems, you know, the theaters and some of these venues. That's the other thing, especially in North America and in the United States. There's a lot of these what I call boutique venues. So they're, if you remember, there was the run of House of Blues back in the 90s. They started building all these House of Blues, and everybody was doing these. They had the same kind of systems in them. Well, now there's other venues doing kind of a similar thing in the United States, and they're really nice venues. The productions are good, so you don't need to carry a lot of stuff with you. And that's cutting down on the cost of touring. You don't need that extra truck. You don't need that extra personnel. Of course, management and you know the people, the money, you know, the money counters, they love it, you know, because it's making sure that everybody else is, you know, they're all making more money. The bands are making more money, but you know, again, you have to do it almost these days because it's tougher to tour. Bands don't make, you know, bands aren't making money. They're not selling records anymore. You know, they're not making money. You know, music, you're not making money making music. You're making it going out touring. You're making it doing selling merchandise like you did in the old days. Merchandise was a big thing in the 80s when I started. Bands were making a lot of money on merch. Well, now that's how they're making a living, and they're doing the meet and greets and things like that. So they've got to cut their costs somewhere, but they don't want to jeopardize the integrity of the show. So they still try to bring some elements to make it unique for them.
So let's move forward to more pictures. I've got one of of Yes in 2016, probably on the US tour. So let me just display two pictures first. And coming up soon. And
there's some water.
And this one.
Yes.
And this one.
They are
definitely employing your LED walls, which I'm going to show a picture of in a second.
Okay. Yeah, this is the U.S. tour from 2016. This tour was really fun. This was Andy, who I mentioned in the video designer for Yes. Him and I really enjoyed this tour. Honestly, we were really disappointed. There was some talk that this was going to be filmed for a DVD release.
Right.
We were excited about it. And we actually looked at our itinerary, and him and I were like, well, we told management, let's do it here. We gave them 3 venues that would be ideal to shoot it in.
Yeah.
And for some reason, at the last minute, it didn't happen, whether it was a budget thing or whatever. And not to blow our own horn on this, we were actually getting written up in reviews of the tour. We were seeing them in different cities. There were reviews, and we were getting mentioned in the review, like ahead of the music. Like you know, you'd have somebody writing a review of the show, a journalist, and they would say, I forget, there was one journalist, I forget where it was, somewhere on the West Coast, I think, and I have a copy of the article. He said that it was the best show YES had done visually in 20 years.
Wow.
Which we were like, yeah, we were floored. I mean, him and I, we were both like, all right, you know, I guess we got job security for a while, you know. And you know, it's tough because, you know, like I said, we're trying to do something different every tour. So like the previous picture, the one with the Toto tour, as you see, we changed the element completely. It's rebuilt. But being that said, if you look closely, you'll see that I'm using the same lights in the design on the floor pack. It's the Magic Blades. I've got some Roby points in this show, and then everything else in the air is all local production. You know, but the video wall, that video wall was very cool. Andy came up with a really cool idea on this one. So that the video wall, there's actually 3 main walls there. There's 2 outer legs, almost like a proscenium, and then the center wall. The center wall was a slightly lower resolution than the outer one. The outer 2 are very high res. I think they were like 3 mil. So what was happening is we were doing some of the albums again, and he was using the outer walls almost like set pieces. So he would put static imagery. He would some of it would animate. There was points in the show where most of the motion was in the main wall, but the outer one was almost like he would have. And he was using some of the Roger Dean. You know, Roger Dean did the album artworks. Yes. They're using some of his art, and then Andy was animating some of it. But then there was times he was using different visualizations where it was just a static piece on the outside. And we were getting feedback from fans. They were like, thought it was amazing. They were blown away how great, and how they said it looked really massive, even though it wasn't. I mean, we were doing mainly theaters on this tour, you know. But we went for that. We were looking for the big visual for this tour. I mean, and the video goes all the way to almost to the floor. And then if you notice, there's also there's video panels in front of the riser. So we were trying to almost incorporate like the drums, keyboards into the set, almost like they were surrounded by video. Because we actually had an idea a couple years before that where, and we had discussions with Steve Howe about it, about actually almost putting video all the way around the band, almost all the way around the sides and everything. But we looked at the production cost, and it was just going to be, it was going to be quite expensive to do, and you know, it would have to be pretty good sized venues to do it. So we were almost going to surround the band completely in video, even like over the top. We were going to have video coming up from the top of everything. You know, but it didn't happen, and probably won't at this point.
I was just thinking, as you're talking about putting video walls on the risers, the next thing would be video wear, you know, clothing.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't think we could have got the guys to wear that. Well, I don't know. Being said, Jeff Downs, the keyboard player, he wears some pretty flashy jackets on stage. So he'd be the one guy that would probably wear something like that. He would be all for it, you know, because he has one jacket that's this silver. I mean, it's sparkly, it's silver sequency thing. It's quite loud. Let's put it that way. But,
so I got a picture of probably the same tour, but it looks like you've got some CO2 jets there. Am I right or wrong? You see it in a second.
Yeah, I think I know the picture you're talking about. Yeah, we did. That was the tour, and forgive me if I forget where it was in the set. It was the end of, would be the, boy, in this terrible. I've been with them all these years. I cannot remember which song it was, but it was the end of this part where there's the big drum part, and as the crescendo's ending, they wanted that sort of big ending, and it was discussed. Well, someone said, well, you know, pyro and all that, and I go, no, we can't afford that. You have to bring somebody out with the licensing issue. You know, you've got to have to get it signed off every day. You have to have a tech out on the road.
Yeah. So
basically, what I did is I've got these geysers that have lights in them, like LEDs, and I put them along the front of the stage, and I just put them in red. And at that point in the show, the smoke goes up. And if you notice, people thought we were actually doing fire, something like, when they're far enough. And people up close knew what it was. But at the back, they were like, "Oh, you guys have the flames," like, well, no, not really. But it gave that effect. It worked. It worked for what we were, the look we were going for at that point in the show. And it wasn't expensive to do, and it wasn't real expensive to do. It didn't have to have a tech. How I could set them up myself.
Wow. I was gonna say, has it ever failed? Because I remember years ago using smoke machines and things like that, and invariably things never ever worked out as planned. It never ever did.
Yeah.
I've never tried.
These are able. These are actually programmed right from the lighting desk. They're programmed from the lighting desk. They're built into a queue. I just hit the queue and off they go. It's just basically it's kind of like a smoke machine shooting straight up. It's just a jet. They make versions. They have. You'll see a lot of the EDM acts and stuff. You see all that smoke in the jets, and that's all CO2. These were not CO2. These weren't as powerful, but it worked for what we were doing here. We didn't have to arrange to have CO2 brought in every day, like most tours do when you arrange CO2 jets. And I did these. I actually did a version something like this in Japan on the same tour. We did it in Japan.
Oh, they look really effective from this picture.
Yeah, they did. The band wasn't sure about it. I showed it to them at rehearsals, and they were like, "Oh, okay." And I hate to come back to Steve, but Steve is the one who's picky about this stuff. And if any kind of weird smells, he doesn't like. We did a tour a few years earlier than that where we had dry ice back on stage. This is when Chris was still alive, and so it was basically it's a machine. It's a fog machine, but it runs through like a cooling unit, and so when the smoke comes out, it stays low and it looks just like dry ice. Because they used to use dry ice back in the day, real dry ice.
Yeah.
But dry ice is expensive, and so we were using this on tour, but it had a little bit of an odd smell to it, and Steve hated the smell. So halfway through the tour, it got cut, and I had to send it home. So we didn't use it for the rest of the tour, and it used to make Chris. It used to make Chris laugh. You have to. There was a weird dynamic. The fans know that Chris and Steve kind of go back and forth a little bit. Chris was the big jokester and the big laugh, and anything he could do to kind of rile Steve up always made Chris laugh. Always funny. He was like, Steve was finally just adamant. He's like, "No, gotta go," and it's like, "Okay, we'll get rid of it." So I was disappointed because it looked nice, and it looked nice in the show. It worked really well, but
yeah, I can imagine that. So I got a couple of pictures you sent me as well of the naked equipment.
Okay.
Your LED walls and everything in a setup process, pre-pro. They don't look so, they are deceivingly tall. From the picture you think, oh, they can't be more than 6 feet, but
right. Well, now this particular tour, it's a similar idea to what we did in 2016 with the high res wall and the other, but this was a little different. This was 2017. This would have been the Izeibila tour.
Okay.
Now, if anybody who's watching this right now knows about that tour, that's the tour that we did. It was Todd Rundgren, and Carl Palmer's Experience. So it was a 3-band tour. It was a little mini festival touring theaters and amphitheaters. So this particular tour, and if you kind of look in the one picture or the one from the side, you'll see that the video walls are actually sitting in road cases. And now these particular walls, these didn't necessarily roll up, but they kind of folded. It was a type of, I forget what it was, but Andy basically, to make his life easier, he never took them completely out of the box. He would leave the box. You couldn't see it from the audience. But so they were just above the boxes, and then he would just, at the end of the day, he would just take the truss, lower it down in, and then detach them. So the video, you can see the cases. You can actually see them sitting in the cases. So that made our load in and load outs much easier, and he didn't have as many problems with them getting broken and things like that. And the other thing, that if you look at that same picture, you'll see I have some taller towers with lights on it. Now there's some short towers. You'll see one kind of close in that picture. If you look at the light on top, it looks like just a regular moving light on top. It's actually a laser. We actually had lasers on that too.
Wow.
It's a product, it's called a Phenom, and it's basically it's the casing. It's the same motors as, very similar to a clay package Sharpie.
Yeah.
Same motor, same, but it's a laser built into it, and
Nice.
I could actually control it from the lighting desk.
Nice.
The company that owns them is based near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
The gentleman who owns the company, if you saw the not Pink Floyd, but if you saw Roger Waters' tour that he did, I want to say 10 years ago or so, when they had the giant laser when he was doing the stadiums, that was the Dark Side of the Moon. That's the gentleman who created that laser, and at that time that was the brightest laser in existence, and I think it still is. But he created these little phenoms. The man's brilliant, and he created these little phenoms, and he has them in his company. And we were looking for something, and I said, do I need to have a tech out on the road? He said, no, I can have you come down here, spend a day, we train you, you'll get certified.
Wow.
And I take care of all the paperwork. He said, and the nice thing about these particular lasers is you can actually, as long as you're 30 feet away from an audience, you can shine them right over the audience. But actually, you can actually put a filter on them, so that, because you can't shine lasers in people's eyes, obviously. That's all. But these, you could actually kind of scan out of the crowd, and people up in the balcony, if I hit them, it's fine. They didn't bother them. They weren't hurt.
Wow.
And, so that was nice, because we didn't have to have a separate tech, which that cost more money. And it was nice because I could just run it from the light desk. And they actually gave me a file. They had about 500 clips that they had designed for these different, that you could use. And you could take them and tweak them and use them into your show, but they just gave me the file. Said, here, you can add this to your, just use it for your show. So that was neat. And fans were really, because obviously back in the day, yes, used to use lasers, back in the heyday.
Yeah. Wow. So with automation really assisting you in getting a lot happening, do you ever, I'm just wondering, do you incorporate MIDI time code or MIDI short control at all in your work?
I don't myself. I've done a few tours where there was time code, where I did the tour. I'm not going to mention what it was. No, it was basically a family entertainment show. I did it right after I finished the Yes tour in 2018. I spent a year and a half doing it. And that particular show was time coded. And the reason I did it, the booking agent who booked Yes also booking it, if I would go do it. That's why I did that. So that's why I didn't do, if people are wondering, I did not do I was not out on the 2019 tour with Yes. That's the first tour I've missed in over 10 years. Was the summer tour that they did. It's called the Royal Fair Tour. I was doing another tour, and I was busy that whole year, so I did that tour.
So, go on.
No, it's just but it's really interesting how much that's changed in the last decade or so. Yeah. Now, it used to be video was always really, when video was used on tour, it was separate from lighting. It was completely. Now it's still separate, but the two departments, they've kind of merged, because you can run lighting and run video these days. If you have a server, you can trigger. A lot of tours do that. They trigger their video from the lighting console. Now we don't do it on Yes because Andy has stuff programmed, but he also does. He's running some video elements live. He's actually tweaking things, depending on how the feel of the song. That's an interesting thing too. Is we don't program together. I will program the lighting, and he does the video. Now he'll tell me ahead of time, kind of maybe some of the elements. He'll send me some clips of what he's doing. But the really interesting thing is when we get out to the first shows, our color palettes and things like that, they almost never clash. Like what I'm doing within a song, lighting-wise, with different colors and things, his video content is very close, if not exactly. It's really funny how the two of us, it's worked out that our brains are on the same wavelength as far as that, which is rare. You don't see that very often. You usually have to sit down have to sit down together and do everything. And okay, here's where we're going to tweak this because of this, and make these changes. So, but that's the other thing too. Is that we do have that free. We have the free form. The band doesn't. There's no input from the band. They don't. They see it, and if there's something they don't like, they might say it. But it's rare that they say anything that they generally don't say. No, I don't like that. They're usually okay with it, which is great because it gives you that freedom.
Do they ever, I guess they never, but I'm just wondering, do they ever consider, costumes or what I'm gonna wear? Will it clash with the lights, or do they just get on stage in whatever they feel like wearing?
No, they wear whatever they want to wear. Yeah. They definitely wear whatever they want to wear. Obviously, they have certain things they wear every few shows. You see, if you go to a couple shows, you'll see, oh, he wore that shirt the other night. Or that kind of thing. But no, the only person I've run into that with the wardrobe thing in the last 15 years or so would be Carl Palmer from Asia and ELP. I did the Asia tour in 2012, which was technically it was the last tour with the original lineup. They got back together, they did that tour, it was the anniversary tour, and Steve then left after that tour. He didn't continue with them, even though he did play shows back in 2019. They were on that Royal Affair tour. But anyway, we were doing a live broadcast in San Francisco, was it? No, San Jose, I think it was. And so it was a live broadcast, and they ended up, fans have probably, I think you can buy it now. They released it as a DVD. I don't have a copy. I don't know why I never got one. But, so we're doing the show, and Asia would do 2 sets, same as Jess would usually do an intermission. And Carl decided to wear a very light pink colored shirt. Well, some of the magentas that I used on some of the first parts of the songs of the set made it look like he wasn't wearing a shirt.
I was gonna say.
I got yelled at for it. He was mad. I find this out later. He was screaming mad at intermission because he had to go and change his shirt. He had to find a different shirt. But that's Carl. That's the only time I've ever really had anybody say anything about the lighting of the wardrobe.
You need to change your colors.
I wasn't really. Yeah, well, that's the thing. And that was the thing. They're like, well, you got to change. I'm like, the show's programmed. I can't. I can't just sit there and I could sit there and do it on the fly, but it's going to completely change the show. And we're running live. We're going out. We're broadcasting. I can't do that. So that's why he changed the shirt. I don't even think he remembers that story.
That's fun.
That's the only. I mean, Carl and I got along fine. That's the only time he ever kind of got mad. So.
Yeah, I understand. So, any questions from the viewers? Please put it in the live chat. We are getting close to 11, and I did promise Don that we wouldn't go beyond about an hour and a half. But as far as I know, Don, you are a-okay with coming back for a round 2?
Sure.
And
that'd
I'm
be great.
Yeah, it'll be fun to talk more because there's so much. I got like 3.5 pages of questions, but we've only covered 2. That's a good thing.
Okay.
It's a good thing. So, the last one I'd like to talk about is being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by Rush or by Geddy Lee. Was it Geddy Lee who did the?
It was Geddy and Alex both inducted him. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a cool thing. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of the Rock and Roll Fame because I think there's some people in there that don't belong in there, and I think there's people that should be in it.
Yeah.
But when you're there and you're around all those, I mean, their induction, Yes got in a year. I mean, the artist that got in the year Yes got in, which was 2017. It was ELO, Joan Baez, Pearl Jam, Journey. I mean, it was the amount of rock stars backstage was unbelievable. I mean, it was it was quite an evening. It really was. And of course,
did you program the entire? Did you program the entire show or just Yes's performance segment?
No, on this I had nothing to do with the lighting. You're not allowed. They have their own. They have their people that design. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Really?
They have a production crew. They do it every year. They design it. They run all the things. No, I was just there as the production manager for Yes, which was a strange thing because there were 2 Yes camps at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
John Anderson, the original singer, Trevor, and
Rick.
Rick, they had started ARW around that time. So they got together. None of them had been in the same room in over 10 years. Like John and Steve and Alan hadn't been in the same room in 10 years because John had left the band. He got sick in 04 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So they hadn't really been. Alan kind of talks to them, but they hadn't really spoke much. So they were trying to figure out who was going to play bass because obviously Chris was no longer with us. Neither camp wanted their bass player in. Like they didn't want the other one's bass player. They didn't think that was right. So it was suggested that Geddy would play on one of the songs. They approached Geddy, and he was, of course, Geddy is a huge Yes fan. Him and Alex, that's one of their. You've probably seen interviews where they said that that's the only band they ever waited overnight to get tickets for the first time they saw them. So they got them they of course were going to do the induction. They got Geddy to come in and play. So we were in this place in New York rehearsing, this rehearsal room they got for us, and the tension in the room was really thick. It was really strange. It was like the 2 camps, the bands were kind of not really talking. But Geddy walked in the room, and the air was like, oh, okay, Geddy's here. And I'm a huge Rush fan. Honestly, I'll tell you honestly, that's my favorite band of all. They're one of the reasons I saw them. I was probably 15 the first time I saw them, like the Hemispheres tour, and I was just floored by the band. Of course, it was band's music, but they had a video screen back then, the light, the whole thing. I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. That's cool. That would be cool to do, right? So I actually got to talk to Geddy and I got to talk to Alex and got a picture taken with them and told them, hey, thank you for the music and the whole thing. So I was there just as the production manager, but then of course the other side they had a production manager. But the 2 crews got along great. We had part of our crew, they had part of their crew. So that end of it worked out really well. And the band, at the end of the day, everything was fine. They played together.
Yeah.
But it was really cool watching some of the other musicians and the other crews and just people seeing all these different musicians, and admiration that they had for all of them and the respect, So in that regard, that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction thing it's a cool thing if you're there and you're involved in it,
I did find a clip that I can show without the audio because I don't have the copyrights. So I'll play it quickly. This is the Owner of a Lonely Heart, of course, with Trevor Rabin there. So Steve Howe's on the left, as you can see.
Is this from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? Yeah, so Geddy only played on Roundabout, and then when they did Owner, being the Trevor, that's Trevor, he was in the band at the time. Steve wasn't in the band at the time.
Yeah.
So Steve said, I'll play bass. So we got Steve a bass. We got it from a music store. We rented it.
Okay.
And so they played. So that's Steve playing bass. And of course, Steve Howe, amazing guitar player.
Yeah.
But he's a really good bass player. He was a really, really good bass player.
There you go. And
and he was having
I got a clip from Roundabout as well. Again, no audio, because. But the video, was that done by you guys?
No, that would be from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's from the broadcast.
All right.
It's actually, and it was probably, I don't think the music was edited. That's the thing when you watch it on TV, because HBO usually has it. They actually edit a lot of the stuff out. Like when you see a band's performance, you don't always see all the songs they play. Now, Yes only played 2 songs. Usually the bands play 3, but sometimes you'll see they only play 2 or maybe even 1 on the broadcast, and they cut it down from the original show because the show always runs long. Because Pearl Jam, I think played, if I remember, I think they played 4 songs. They played quite a while. Journey played 3 songs, I think, but Yes only played 2. So obviously their songs are fairly long, and they played 2 of the shorter songs they had. If they had really wanted to, they could have played a whole night, you know, just by playing 3 or 4 songs. You know, you got 20-minute songs.
True.
But that wasn't going to happen. But
So,
yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool being there, and I'm glad it was an honor to be there. I'm glad I got to do it. You know, and everybody on our crew said the same thing. Like, it's cool. You know, we thought it was going to be kind of a disaster, but it's good.
well, thanks, Don. I got one final question for you before I consider scheduling you for round 2, which will be probably April. Are you going to be on tour between now and April?
Honestly, right now, I came off the road. This is where it's kind of weird. I came off the road in December of 19. I was looking to maybe go back out in 20. When I'm not touring. I work for a production company. So I'm the guy.
Okay.
When you come through on tour, if you're not carrying production, my company that I work for, we bring in sound and lighting.
Okay.
So I do that when I'm home. Well, I've been doing that. I did that through COVID.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how it has affected you, COVID, that is.
Well, in the summer of 20, we did some shows that they called drive-in shows here in North America, where they would use the movie drive-in. You'd sit in your car. So we did a few of those. Last year, though, we started doing shows again, and I was fairly busy here in the summer and in the fall. There wasn't any tours. Honestly, last year, I didn't really want to go on tour. I wasn't there, because the reason, and it wasn't so much I was nervous about getting COVID or anything. It's just the fact that I knew people that were out on tour and their tours were getting canceled. Too many people were sick, or they in certain cities they were not doing shows. So guys were going on tour, and next thing you know, it's like, well, my next 6 weeks of work is gone because it's canceled. So then they're sitting there going, I don't have a job. So I just stayed home and was working. And then I just actually had an accident. I fell at my house in the beginning of November. I fell on my stairs. I slipped.
Oh, no.
And I fractured 2 vertebrae in my back, on my L1 and my L2. So I have a slight fracture. So I just got back to work about 3 weeks ago. So I just did my first shows last week, or week before that last. So right now I'm not going. I have no plans to go back on tour. Yes is supposed to do a tour. They keep pushing it back. It's scheduled for May sometime. I haven't spoke to management about coming. I've told them if they want me to come back, I'll come back and do lighting. I'd be happy to go. I don't want to go back and do both jobs. I don't want to do the production. Nothing against being a production manager. I don't want to do 2 jobs again. It's a lot of work. I mean, both jobs take up a lot of time, especially the production. I mean, a production manager just needs to really be a production manager. But it's one of those situations where it's always been kind of somewhat double duty with that particular situation with the camp these days. And you're seeing that a lot more these days. You're seeing, the sound guy is also the tour manager or whatever. And I just I don't want to do that. So, but I'm looking around. I'm looking to see what's going on and see what's going on. But my phone, actually, this week I was offered a couple of jobs where working for some companies where I would be on tour, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. Not to say I would never go back on tour, but it's got to be the right situation. I'm not going to just jump on any tour. I hear about jobs. I hear about the tours all the time, and I hate to say it, but it's still about money. And there's a certain rate I can't go out for less. And anybody in my position who's been doing it long enough, you've got a certain, a bottom line that makes it worth you. You're below that bottom line. No, I can stay home and make a decent living. I don't have to go out. So,
There you go.
I love seeing people out there. It's nice to see people. I love visiting because I have a lot of friends in other cities, whether they're in the business or just acquaintances, so it's always great when I come into town. It's great to see people if I've got some time, and, it's nice because somebody's paying me to be in that city, you know what I mean? But let's get to the point. Eventually they're going to have to get off the road. We all do,
That's true. Tell me about it. I've kind of gotten a little lazy not having the tour, but actually just doing the live stream from home. So the thought of having to drive myself around again,
Yeah, right. Yeah, getting up and going to a hotel, and then having, and then get on the road again and do a show, and yeah, it's a lot. People people think it's, and they say, oh, you've got a great job. That's got to be so much fun. It's like, yeah, it beats a 9-to-5 job, going in an office, but it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time. A lot of time in strange places, and it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I know people have gotten into this business, and they thought it was going to be the greatest thing, and they don't last 3 or 4 years, and they go, that's not for me. Next thing you know, they're gone. They're gone, and they're working some job at home.
Yeah.
Definitely, especially if you've got family. I never married, so I never had it, but I've got buddies on the road that they've raised their kids. They raised their kids while they were on the road.
Wow.
I don't know how they did it. Of course, some of those kids are now some of those kids are old enough now. They're in the business. They followed mom and dad into the business. It's like, all right, well, I guess that makes sense. But I don't know how they do it.
Me neither. Well, thanks, Don. Here's an applause for you from everyone. I don't know if you can hear it, but we
a little bit.
Yeah, we totally and utterly enjoyed having you on the live stream, and I hope you had fun too. Time flies when you're having fun.
It was fun, yes. Yeah, I didn't think we'd be on that long. I wasn't even looking at the clock. We were just chatting, and I get where I chat a little too much. Sometimes I get.
No, you're fine. No, you're supposed to be the one who's talking and not me, but definitely want to have you back for round 2, and maybe with a couple of your buddies as well. So I think I mentioned.
Well, you know who we should get back on now, and I know he was on here. Is Andre.
Andre, yes, we will. I already told him. Yeah, yes, we should. Okay, sure.
Yeah, we should get Andre and maybe like Dean, our sound guy.
Yeah.
That'd be a nice little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do that. No
yeah.
worries.
You could get a perspective from the lighting side, the audio side, and the backline side.
Cool.
Yeah. And trust me, we can talk about anything. We'll talk. We can do a couple-hour show if you want.
I tell you what, when the going's good, 2.5 hours. 2 hours is too short. It's just crazy when it's a live stream. It just keeps on going, and you don't realize how much time has come and gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
My little friend's over here my little friend's on his chair over here. He's looking to try. Yeah. He's sitting there he's all kind of got his feet. I think he's old. So.
Anyway, thanks Don again, and bye Louie.
Thank you. Thanks everybody out there.
You take
care.
Talk
to you soon.
You stay safe, and I hope you heal up completely. If you're not healed up,
I'm doing much. I'm doing much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don. I'll stay in touch with you though. So
okay.
I'll stay in touch with you. So yeah, take care then. Thanks again.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
So everyone, that was Donald Weeks. We had, technical issues, and I'm now using the laptop microphone instead of my handheld that was plugged in. That gives somewhat a different sound quality, but also, fortunately, I had played my piece for you already, so I could close that app to allow me to play live for you. But at least we had an alternative microphone. Hope everything was clear enough for everyone and that you enjoyed yourself. But for those who haven't subscribed, please subscribe and tap the notification bell. There's a bell there so that you know when the next episode is up. My music is available on my Bandcamp site. Hold on, that's not the one I want. That's the one. So if you'd like to support my music, please go to my Bandcamp store. Be most grateful for any support you can give me. My next guest is will grace us with his presence for the final episode in season 3. Before I head on over to Nashville, where I will, after a short while, start up season 4. And I've got a string of exciting guests already waiting in the wings. So next week, my guest is Eric Walker. Eric's been a friend for a while. as a musician. I did not realize till recently he was an actor in the 80s as well. He was none other than Mace Tawani from the Ewok adventure movies, Caravan of Courage and The Battle for Endor. These were done as part of the Star Wars expanded universe. This is in the mid 80s. So Eric will be gracing us with his presence to talk about his time as an actor, and in particular as Mace Tawani. And of course, he also visited the LA Comic-Con in December. So we will probably talk a bit about that as well. A couple of episodes ago, we had our good friend Lee Stringer talking about presenting at the London Film and Comic-Con. So now we have Eric talking about the LA American Comic-Con. So I look forward to seeing you guys then. In the meantime, take care. And when I see you again for the last episode of season 3, please bring your friends along. Please invite them on my behalf. When I get a little rush for time, I tend not to have the extra allotted minutes that I really should allot to inviting everyone from Facebook. But so I really require your assistance. Okie dokie then. I hope 2022 continues to treat you well, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks for the final episode of season 3. Stay safe again. Bye.